All right, Casey. So the NBA slate for today is pretty full. Got
Yeah.
lots of games to go over. So let's just go ahead and get into it. We have the Wizards and the Knicks. The Knicks are 6-point favorites in this one. The over under is 223. Personally, I like the Wizards are a weird team because on paper, man, I love what they have. I love Porzingis, Kyle Kuzma, Bradley Beal, all these guys. I don't know what their injury situation is right now, but I kind of like the Wizards to maybe pull an upset here. I'm not a giant believer in the Knicks long term prospects, but
I'm sorry,
I
I lost my charge on my laptop. Give me two
oh
seconds. I'm listening to you.
yeah, that's fine. Uh, I think the Knicks ultimately probably win this game, but I don't know. I think I would give the Wizards a slightly better chance than maybe the general public would, just because I don't know. The Knicks just always seem like one of those teams that where they'll start playing a little well, people start believing in them, and then they just will disappoint everybody at some point. And
It's that New York problem. So
yeah,
many people want to see that team win in every sport. Ooh, apologies.
yeah, exactly. But I don't know. What are your general feelings on this game?
Yeah, I was just gonna say I like this is a pretty good even matchup. I think 6 points is a little bit too much. Washington's been decent. They are gonna be missing Beal tonight, but the last few games, Washington's doing pretty bad. 1-5 against the spread, 1-5 straight up. I kind of think that's gotten priced into the line.
You know what?
6 points seems like a lot. These are two close teams.
You're right. The more that I look at this, the fact that Bradley Beal is out, I mean, that's enormous. Uh, yeah,
He's still questionable, but I think that that's a big deal.
is he right on
Yeah,
ESPN? It has him as out, status
does
out.
it? Okay.
Yeah, so I don't think he'll be playing tonight. And the Knicks
Oh,
are
sure does.
the Knicks are pretty much healthy. So yeah, I think the Knicks will very likely win this game. Now that I see that, for some reason I thought that Bradley Beal has he been out for a while. I actually don't know. I don't follow the Wizards a ton, but I thought Bradley Beal had gotten back and he was like pretty. Maybe I'm wrong. It doesn't matter. But
Yeah, I don't know. You do have New York on three games in 4 nights, which plays an impact on fatigue. But yeah, missing Bill. I don't know. This is a weird one. That maybe they got the line just right, but
yeah, the
like I
more I
said, really
look
don't
at
feel
it, the
like the
more it
Knicks are
seems
really
right.
competitors for the East.
No.
And Washington is also obviously not, but they're not the worst team in the East. So I just feel like this could be a pretty good game to watch.
Yeah,
And
the only reason
um,
I was saying that about the Wizards is I think they're 18 and 26 right now, but I think they're a much better team than that record. I just
mhm.
do. And it's a gut thing. I don't really have anything to back it up, but I feel like that team should be much better than 18 and 26. And I think 25 and 20 is probably a little bit better than I think the New York Knicks actually are. But moving on to me a much more interesting game, the Dallas Mavericks and the Atlanta Hawks. I think 2.5 points. Dallas is 2.5 point favorites. I think that's really light. I think the Dallas should be significant, maybe even like 4.5 point favorites in this game because to me they're just a better team. And whenever you have Luka Doncic, by the way, this is the ultimate matchup of the trade from that draft. You know, the Hawks and
Oh
the
yeah, Trey
Mavericks.
Young, Doncic.
Yeah. So we have that
Yeah,
matchup going on, but the Hawks are a mess right now. Their coach, what's his name? Always blank on his name. But I think he's going to end up resigning at some point. They've been terrible. They have no chemistry. The DeJounte Murray trade has been an utter failure. They're just not any good. And I think the Mavericks right now have a lot of they have a lot of like positivity kind of swinging around them. You know, Luka Doncic is in the MVP discussion. He's putting up insane stats, and
hmm
he's really kind of carrying them to being a potential top four seed in the West and being a maybe even a threat to make it all the way.
Yeah, the Mavs are so when you just look at some trends that have been happening lately, the Mavs have lost 4 of the last 5, while the Hawks have won 4 of the last 5. But then when you really look at the teams, um, there's only one head-to-head matchup. Of course, the Clippers, the Mavs lost, but the Hawks won. Um, I feel like it seems to me that the Mavericks are playing a little bit. Well,
Wow, the
you know,
Mavericks have lost.
yeah, they lost 2 straight to Portland. They've been on a long road trip. They're returning home. I this maybe the line is right, but maybe this is also a place where the odds makers realize that people are going to look at 4 of 5 versus 1 of 5 and are
Yeah.
gonna lean towards the Hawks. But you do have the Hawks on the road here. Um,
And the Mavericks have
I
been.
think the Mavericks are better. I just think the Mavericks are better, and I think Doncic is like one of those special players. As long as he plays, I think the Mavericks are the guy.
And I
Or the
think
team here.
I think the home away thing is bigger than people want to give it credit for too, because the Mavs have been on a 5-game road stretch where they legitimately went 1-4, right? 1-4 during that road stretch. Their last home game, they beat the Pelicans 127-117. Did the Pelicans have? Okay, no, the Pelicans were without Brandon Ingram and Zion in that game, so not quite as impressive, but I don't know. I just think coming back home after a long road trip, you've had 3 days off at this point. They're going to be well rested. I think they take this game easily. And even though the Hawks, I actually was not I was aware of it because I check the scores every night and I watch highlights and stuff like that. But I haven't followed the Hawks like super duper closely, so it didn't register in my head that they had won 4 out of their last 5. Their only loss in their last 5 games was to the Bucks. But still,
This season, home games against the East, though, they're only 4-3. The Mavericks are. Home games against the Eastern Conference are 4-3. They are 0 against the spread.
wow, really? They are
Quick.
0 for 7 against the spread?
0 for 7, but they have 2 pushes on the spread.
Okay.
As a 1-point dog in one game, as a 9-point favorite in another.
Wow.
They push.
That is
this season is not very
incredible to
great
me.
for them against the East at home.
Wow.
I still think returning home from a long road trip, this could be a bad spot for them. I think next game I'd probably be higher on them where the home crowd really matters a little bit more.
Godly, it is just it's so wild to me because like as we're talking through this, it seems like every trend is trying to push us towards the Hawks. And that makes that just even it almost reinforces my belief that the Mavericks are going to cover.
Well, yeah, it's a contrarian spot because this is also not a big spread. If it was 6 or 7 points, you'd be hard pressed to be like, "Oh, it's definitely Mavericks." But
sure,
2.5. I mean, you're not. It's a possession.
That's
you could win it on a 3. You could win it on. You could be up 5 or 6 at the end, and then like it's an easy recover. So,
and I always kind of have this idiom like if you ever have a game like a really close game like this, just go find the best player, find which team he's on, and pick that guy in basketball because Luka Doncic
he's one of those guys.
He's that dude, man. Like he is that dude. Like he might be like the best under 25 player that we've seen since LeBron James. Like he is that good. And
here's a more appealing trend for you then. As home favorites this season, over the last 20 games, which all occurred this season, they're 16-4.
Oh.
But they're only 8-11 and 1 against the spread.
Oh.
But again, this is a low spread. I think.
Yeah.
I think this probably supports your mentality. Plus, you're thinking about like who's the better team.
Yeah.
Although I don't think the Mavericks are where they need to be to truly contend long term.
Yeah, well, I think that they definitely need to make a move because Luka Doncic is kind of doing it all on his own right now. Like Christian Wood, he's pretty good. Like Tim Hardaway, like that. Like they have some dudes, but
well, you've talked about some teams on here and in other conversations we've had where teams should be kind of selling a little bit. We're talking about a little bit about the Trailblazers, maybe even the Hawks, maybe even the Jazz, where it's like they're good, they're not great, they don't really have it. Maybe this is a point in the season where they start to deal, and maybe the Mavericks can go and grab somebody that changes things going forward.
Yeah. Okay, here's another reason to kind of be optimistic on the Mavericks. the past few games, they've been without Josh Green and Dorian Finney-Smith, and both of them, according to this Woj report, both of them are expected to return against the Hawks. So, yeah, I'm going to stick with my after looking at all this, I'm going to kind of stick with my pick, Mavs -2.5. I like them to win this game. Next game, we went a little long on that one. Next game, we have two cellar dwellers duking it out.
I was about to say, this is a good thing. This game is, unfortunately, someone has to win.
Yeah.
For both fan bases. So we talked about the Spurs being pretty bad and then lose it mode, some other teams, but like the Houston Rockets have perfected the lose it to win it. So
I will say, like, if I had, I wouldn't make a bet on this game at all.
Charlotte wins.
I was gonna say I like Charlotte to win and to cover because I do, even without Lonzo Ball or LaMelo Ball. Even without some other players, they're just a better team. Terry Rozier, Kelly Oubre, all those guys, like they're just a better team in my opinion. They're still a terrible team, but the Rockets have just been truly awful. Like
over 236.5 is the play if you're playing this game at all.
Yeah,
to me,
yeah,
I think it's gonna be a high scoring game.
Yeah, it could be, unless you get into one of those situations where everybody is like fake missing the ball, like, oh no, I missed the shot, like, oops. I'm
telling you, I don't think players do that.
I know.
Believe players do that.
I know. I'm just messing with you. I knew that would be your reaction if I said that.
Yeah, you can tell me all you want about the GM tanking, but like, I don't see
both teams
professional athlete doing it.
Both teams will try as hard as they can, and that won't be very hard.
All.
Yeah, exactly. But let's move on to another game that is
a good matchup here.
Much more interesting to me: the Cavs and the Grizzlies. And when I'm looking at this, it's really, really kind of shocking to me that the Grizzlies are this much of a favorite. They're 7.5 point favorites at home against the Cavs. And the Grizzlies have been, I think they have the longest winning streak in basketball right now. Like, they've been really good. And the Cavs, do they have like any? Okay, Donovan Mitchell is day to day, but he's okay. This is why Donovan Mitchell is doubtful for the game. So that's why the spread. But that's a big old spread against a team as good as the Cavaliers. I don't know. This is probably a no bet. If I had to pick, I would pick the Cavs plus 7.5. But even without Donovan Mitchell. But yeah, I don't know. This is just a really interesting matchup to me because the Grizzlies have been terrific. They're 19-3 on the season at home. 19-3, and the Cavs are 9-13 on the road. So I do think the Grizzlies win. But 7.5
is a lot.
Is huge. Now, one bet I would really like is the under in this game. You're dealing with these are the top two defenses in the NBA, in my opinion. Like these are two insanely good defensive teams. I could honestly see this game, neither team cresting 100 points in this game. I think that's actually a possibility.
That's wild in today's NBA, though. It's very rare to see that.
Yeah, I don't even know how many examples we have of that this year. Like, it doesn't happen, like, really ever.
It happened at least once, and I can't remember the two teams, but it's because I had the over, and I was like, it's not even close. I'm like over 232, and it was like 98, 89. I was like, what happened?
Yeah. Yeah, but I think this is going to be kind of a grit and grind, slow pace, defensive half-court struggle in this game. That's kind of what I think. And I think the Grizzlies win. I'm picking them to win, but I don't think they cover 7.5. And I think that the low-scoring nature of this game is going to kind of contribute to that idea as well. But okay. Moving on, unless you have anything to say about that.
No, I was just looking at. I'm over here clicking through some things that I keep for trends, and the Grizzlies have been really good at home this season. Really good at home, and and then you do take out a player like a Donovan Mitchell, and
Them
I don't know if he's as important to a team. Like we've talked about guys like Jokic and Durant and Giannis and all that. Does he have that impact? I don't know, but
he's kind of the engine.
Would...
He's kind of the engine of that offense. But defensively, I think the Cavs can survive without him.
Yeah, I think so. I think I'd lean with you too, though. That goes to the under because you're also missing a key scorer for them.
Yeah.
I would say under is probably the way to go there.
Yeah. But moving on, we have the Heat and the Pelicans. The Heat are a 3-point road favorite, and the over-under is 219. That is an exceptionally low over for this game. But the Heat are a really good defensive team. The Pelicans, I'm actually not sure where they rank defensively. But what are your general thoughts on this game? The Pelicans are super hurt right now. Like two best players are out. In fact, three of their four best players are out because Herbert Jones is not going to play, is doubtful for this game as well.
Yeah, this is a spot where I tend to look at the over/under more than the rest because we do have a lot of injuries, but also just historically non-conference games tend to do pretty good. But I want to say that the Heat, and I'm trying to find this stat. So New Orleans is not, just 6-4 at home against the East on over/unders, and then the Heat, I want to say are the opposite direction. It really pushes to the under. So I'm pulling that up, but those are the trends that I tend to look at is like when you go non-conference games, the over/unders are, Miami on the road in non-conference games are 3-7, 7 unders have hit. So then you throw in it is a low over/under at 219. I would say, I think that Vegas and odds makers know a little bit better than the public, and this is probably an under spot. They're trying to tempt you to grab that over.
Yeah, I agree. This totally seems like a trap right here. It really does.
There's been some Kings games you and I have talked about, and others like over under 242, 245, where I've been like, that's a trap. They want you to take the under, and of course, it's one of those like 260-point games that. Mm-hmm. You don't understand how they know and why they know it, but
there's actually
219 seems too low for this.
There's actually one of those games that we're going to talk about later that seems like that. But 219, it is really, really low, and it's really hard to pull the trigger on an under that's that low. But like you said, I think that the Vegas odds makers know better than the public what's actually going on. And the Heat are a tremendous defensive team, and the Pelicans are out some of their best players. So, but because of that, it does kind of tempt me to take Miami -3 in this game. That is a very, very tempting bet to me. Miami is relatively healthy, and the Pelicans are not. And I mean, the Pelicans without Herb Jones defensively, that's a huge loss. I mean, he's one of the better defenders in the league. And without Zion and without Brandon Ingram, I mean, that's two of your best offensive options right there. I mean, you really only have CJ McCollum and Valanciunas to really run that offense. So I don't know. It just seems like Miami -3 would be a pretty good bet too. But
it seems like McCollum 60 points seems like the play.
Yeah,
it just seems like what's going to happen. If you talk to that, I'm in his Trailblazers days. I feel like I thought that all the time. Like all they have is McCollum. It's going to be a bad night. And then it's like, he just goes all out.
CJ McCollum. We were talking about Drew Holiday in the other video. CJ McCollum is a very underrated player too, man. He is excellent. But okay, moving on. Pacers and Thunder. OKC -4. There's got to be a good reason for this. Who's out for? Okay, there it is. Tyrese Halliburton is out for the Pacers, and that's huge. Tyrese Halliburton has been. I think Tyrese Halliburton has been a top 20 player in the league this year. He is great. He is real good. Best, like outside of Jokic, I think he's probably the best passer in the league. He has. In fact, he has better assist numbers than Jokic, but I think that there's more that goes into playmaking than just assists. But yeah, I don't know. That makes this game far more interesting because Oklahoma City has been significantly better than I and pretty much everyone else thought they would be. And a large part of that is because of just how good Shea Gilgeous-Alexander has been. I mean, it's kind of hard to be a terrible team when you have a guy like him averaging over 30 points a game.
I was just gonna say he's got the best name in basketball. I think it's a
Yeah.
little more pronounceable than Giannis Antetokounmpo, but it's still challenging enough. And I think that's where I'm gonna land. Is I think Oklahoma City's the better team tonight.
Tonight,
When you
yeah.
tonight, I just don't know if you.
They're
Like
at home.
you said, when you got a pickle spot, it's like who has the best one player who can take over. I think Alexander's the guy.
Yeah. Now, the Pacers, they are not a joke. I think the Pacers, when Tyrese Halliburton is healthy, Benedict Mathurin, Miles Turner, Buddy Hield, like they I don't think they're a contender, but I think that nobody is like looking forward to playing the Pacers in the playoffs because they're just they have a lot of like really good young talent on that team. But ultimately here, Tyrese Halliburton is the glue of that team, and without him, I do kind of like the Thunder -4. I think that spread is like a little big, but I think similar to the Heat Pelicans game, I almost think that it's the odds makers tempting you to take the Pacers to just like kind of look at the record. Yeah, exactly. So I think that's a bit of a trap bet to bet on the Pacers +4. So yeah, I kind of like OKC -4 there. 238 over under. I don't really have any special feelings one way or the other. I don't know if you do. I know this is an interconference game, and that can kind of throw some funkiness in there sometimes, but I don't know.
Yeah, I don't. Extra things I look at when I'm looking at interconference games are recent schedule and upcoming schedule. No back-to-backs, no 3 and 4s happening here. It's pretty much a 50-50 at that point. I really like there are certain back-to-back situations and 3 and 4 situations that obviously make me lean highly towards the over or the under. But they don't have that in this case, so I'd have to go and really look at each team. And right now, I don't have anything on this one.
Okay.
And I don't think I will.
Okay. Clippers, Jazz. Jazz are -6. That seems like a lot. The over/under is 227. I know that that the Clippers have been like a perennial under team this year, haven't they? Like hasn't the under hit on them like an inordinate amount of times?
At home.
At home.
At
okay.
Home. And we of course took the under at home last night and it didn't hit. So yeah, it's like now I guess it's like 15-5 or 16-5 unders.
Well, Kawhi and Paul George returning theoretically should change that dynamic one way or the other. You would think anyway, but I don't know. Utah -6 just seems like a lot, especially if Kawhi Leonard and Paul George are going to be playing. I don't know if they will be. Are there any updates? The Clippers are just, yeah, they have them listed. Okay, it looks like Paul George is out.
George is out.
Kawhi is day to day. Kawhi is always
rest.
Yeah,
is the note.
Yeah, that's the thing about Kawhi is that you never know with him. And I think they're on a back-to-back, aren't they? Didn't they play? Didn't we cover them?
Game 2 of a back-to-back, yeah.
Yeah.
Did he play last night?
He did. So
he's not playing tonight. He
probably sits. So golly, I hate that strategy. I really do. To me, it robs fans of getting to see like great players. I don't even think it's good for the team long term. It's hard to build chemistry. Like, I don't know, man. If you're healthy enough to play, then freaking play. So
all the sports have schedule issues. I think that they'll fix or change in the long term, except for baseball. Like when we've talked about it with football, like there's got to probably be a second bye week in there as they extend the season. College football has issues because like it's really dumb that they take a month off between the season and then have to come back and try to play a playoff. Like that's really not helpful for those athletes. And then basketball, like players and coaches alike really hate back-to-backs, but they really hate playing that third game in 4 nights. And especially when you include how much travel these teams do. There's a lot of back and forth for these guys.
I think back-to-backs are fine as long as I really like what they're doing this year, where they'll have like these little mini series, like where you'll play a back to back, but it'll be against the Kings in Sacramento back to back nights.
Yeah.
I think that would make back to backs a lot easier on the team in general. But if you're playing, at home one night in Los Angeles and then the next night you have to play in Atlanta, like I don't know how often that happens, but like that's a nightmare, right?
Yeah. That's why when I'm looking at like what am I doing, and like all things equal, as in the teams are relatively healthy and there's no major injury that I'm having to deal with. I'm looking at teams who are on longer road trips, but also have like a weird situation where like they may have played a night game on Friday and now they've got the Sunday 2:00, because like that's basically still a back to back for these guys as far as their bodies are concerned. And I know that there's technically an extra night of sleep in there, but like there's weird situations that pop up and you see letdown spots for individual performance.
Yeah.
But yeah, not to get off on a crazy tangent about the schedule. I just know that that's something that I don't think in 10 years we'll still be looking at. MLB is the only one that I think really has it figured out, where it's just like you let the computer generate based on their process, and you're going to have really good. You're going to have long road trips. Sure, it's a long season. Sure, but that's the nature of baseball.
Yeah.
And basketball is similar to that. And I think you just got to find this nuance.
But in baseball, the series thing makes it a lot easier, because no matter how long a road trip is, whenever you get to a spot, you're going to be there for at least 3 days, right? Like you're not going to be traveling every day.
Especially like an East Coast team who will go and they'll play the Dodgers, and then they'll play the Angels maybe, and then they'll play the Giants, and they're in that same time zone for a while.
Right.
Like that has an impact. And I don't know. Baseball's much more organized.
Yeah. One note on this game is that even though Paul George is out and Kawhi Leonard will probably sit, Lauri Markkanen also he's considered questionable for this game. So if Lauri Markkanen sits, at that point, that's starting to push me more towards Clippers +6. But if Lauri Markkanen plays, I think the spread is probably a no bet. I wouldn't take Utah on the money line either. It would just be a no bet. And as far as the over-under, I'm really just kind of off this game in general. Too many question marks.
When you see opposing trends, and this is just something that I've been kind of testing out and thinking about, but I tend to lean towards the home team's trends, because like I think they control a little bit more.
Right.
The total's over 6 of 7 for Utah, 4 of 5 against the West teams, 4 of 5 in January, so basically 4 of 5 the last 5 games.
Yeah.
They're not performing well as the favorite in games. They're 1-6 against the spread in their last 7 games as a favorite. So I think that the home team trend tends to prevail if they're different. Like we've got the Clippers are a little bit more of an under team, a little bit like we don't know what they're going to do. But I think you're going to see Utah probably fall a little flat, especially if Markkanen's out. And then I don't know. I just don't see this being as defensive of the game. So I'd probably lean towards the over if I had to, but probably no play at all.
Okay. All right. Next game, my favorite team, the Nuggets versus the Timberwolves. And I've got to be honest, this game scares the hell out of me. It really does. I think that Denver could easily lose this game.
The Timberwolves are a pretty solid team.
They are on paper, but they've had kind of a nightmare of a season with like Rudy Gobert. That whole trade, the fact they gave up so much to get him, and they just haven't been able to figure it out, like from a chemistry standpoint. I think Karl Anthony Towns is probably going to be out for this game. Is that true? Let's see.
He's out indefinitely.
Yeah, Karl Anthony
Gobert is going to be questionable.
Yeah. So that gives me like a little bit of hope, but to be honest, the Timberwolves have really played Denver well whenever they played this year. I think they've played twice. I could be maybe just once. But I know they won at least one of the games against the Nuggets. And I don't know what it is, but especially coming off a back-to-back where Jokic played 34 minutes, all the starters played over 30 minutes. It's just a really scary game to me. And if I actually had to make a bet on the line, I would take Minnesota +8. Yeah, because that's a big spread, man. And I love the Nuggets, and I think the Nuggets are great. And I think the Nuggets probably win this game, but
I
I don't
like
know,
the under
man.
here as I'm looking at it.
You do?
Just
I was
that's
about
standing
to.
out to me.
Oh wow, we might have a disagreement here because I was actually loving the over in this game because the Nuggets so far this like for the past month, even like month and a half, have been like money for 120 points. Like that they score 120 points so dead gum consistently. Like it's crazy. Okay, this is their game log for they have 122, 119, 115, 126, 122, 121, 122, 111 against the Timberwolves. So there you go. 123, 124, 126, 113, 128, 120. Like they just 120 points just seems like or at least 115 seems like such a lot. So I guess for this that's kind of the bar. It's like if the Nuggets score 120 points and the Timberwolves are within 8, I mean the over hits, right?
So, and I'm looking at the Nuggets are on the back of a back-to-back. They and I the last 10 games that they've been in that situation, they've scored over 126 or 7 times, but
Mm-hmm.
the other games have been well under 120. But then you've got Minnesota on the front of a back-to-back on the road. But on front of the back-to-backs, Minnesota's got 116, 102, 114, 118. They do have a 150-point game, and then 114 and 121. And it's like it's pretty doable, but I'm seeing more of the low 110s for them. And so I could see this game, especially Denver at home's been pretty solid as an under lately. Um, for
That's
me, it just
interesting.
seems a lot like a good opportunity to take the under where the world's probably looking at it going over
Yeah,
points.
that you know what? You're right. You're right. And the more I think about this, okay, here's the thing. And this is kind of one of those things where the public's perception can be so far off, like removed from reality, because right now, like if you ask just like a general NBA person or even like a general NBA bettor, like to describe the Nuggets, they would be like, okay, it's one of the best offenses in the NBA and it's one of the worst defenses in the NBA. And for the first half, for like the first quarter of the season, that was true. That's who they were. But over the past like month and a half, or that general time frame, the Nuggets have been like a top 5 defense in the NBA. Like they've been excellent defensively. I think over their past like 2 weeks, they've been like the number 1 team in the NBA in defensive rating. So with that being, if you consider that and the fact that the over under is kind of being pushed up by the general perception of them
Yep.
being ranked 19th or 20th overall, and the whole narrative around Jokic he's not a good defender, all this stuff. Yeah, I'm starting to kind of come around to your idea, like the under that's a pretty good play, but I think if you go with the under because the Nuggets are just so chalk for 120.
You got to take them on the spread, probably.
Yeah, I think
You got to take it to be kind of like a beatdown.
yeah.
So I have Denver as a home favorite last 20 games, 7-13. So 7 overs, 13 unders. But when you look and you draw you snap a chalk line at 230 points, like over under set above 230, the under is 7-1.
Oh wow.
So it's a big time situation where I think it's again you're looking at 2 teams. You've got Minnesota playing on the road tonight, going home tomorrow. Just league wide, I've been tracking that trend.
Anthony Edwards. Anthony Edwards is also questionable for this game, and he's their best backcourt player by far. So
yeah, I think I'd probably lean under, and of course, when that news comes out, if the over under drops to like 231, 232, it's probably less appealing. But 236.5, even if he's on the court, I don't know. I kind of like the under here.
yeah,
But I've also that Denver home under trend. In fact, a lot of West Conference teams at home have had more unders than overs, which sounds backwards. But like the Clippers, the Warriors have had more unders at home than over. Road games have been huge for overs for them, but home games have been huge for unders. So I don't know. To me, that's the only thing that's really standing out to me. I guess you could say let's take the -8, but like you could get a game where you get 115, 110. It's
Yeah.
still a pretty handy win, and
I
just stayed
also
under.
I also think that the injuries could play a bigger role than normal here because with the Timberwolves, like if Rudy Gobert plays, that could significantly swing like whether or not you think the Timberwolves are going to go over or whether you think this game is going to go over or under because of what he brings defensively generally. And then with Anthony Edwards, it's kind of the same thing because he's such a good scorer. Um, I don't know. It's a complicated game looking at it.
Yeah,
And
it
it's
is.
probably just because I know more about these teams than a lot of other teams. But yeah, I don't know.
That's the reality of how hard it is to make picks
It
from a
really
betting
is.
perspective.
You can make
there's
arguments.
a lot to take in.
Yeah, and you can make arguments either way, and you could really spin yourself into circles. But okay, Lakers and Kings. This is the game that I was telling you where I feel like the 245 over under.
God,
That just
huge.
seems like that's so big.
But both teams have been doing it. Not necessarily the Lakers twice in the last 5, but like if you look at Kings lines, like they're scoring 132 points as the low in the last 5 games.
Good Lord, man.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the Lakers can easily put up 120, so now you're 7 points over.
yeah. What's the injury situation? LeBron is day to day. He's questionable for this game. Obviously, Anthony Davis is out. Lonnie Walker is out. Austin Reeves is out. And then for the Kings, they don't
Healthy.
have. Yeah, they're healthy. So I
think the Kings are.
I actually like the over, man. I think this game is going to be a shootout. I do.
Yeah.
I do.
It could be. I haven't pulled up too much else like I did on those other games, but
the only thing the Lakers can go absolutely ice cold from 3 and like just mid range and the 3. They're not a very good shooting team in general. So if they have one of those games where they just can't hit the broadside of a barn, you worry that they struggle to score 100. And even if the Kings get to 140 and just blow out the Lakers, like that may not be enough, But generally that's not a worry because of pace, because the Kings play at such a high pace that even if the Lakers are struggling to score at some points in the game, they'll still get their points because of just the incredible pace that the teams are playing at.
I'm with you, and both teams are playing pretty well. The Lakers have lost 3, but in general, they're competitive. Like they lost by 1 to the Sixers, by 4 to the Mavericks, who are objectively much better teams.
Yeah.
So, the only real letdown for them was the Nuggets, where they lost by 13, but they're supposed to lose by 13 probably to them more often than not. So I would say, I don't know, this is probably going to be a competitive game. 245 is too high for me, is all. So I just probably wouldn't be putting anything on it. I just think this is probably one of the better matchups tonight.
Yeah. I don't know, man. I would be so tempted because it just feels like one of those where it's like Vegas is like, oh, I know you want to take the under. I know you want to take it. It's like, no, screw you. I want to take the over. I want to beat you.
They really do. 240, anything above 240 is too high for me. But the Kings, like you said, have played at a very high pace this year, which forces their opponents to do it.
Yeah. The last game the Lakers had against the Rockets, it was 272. And then the last game when they played the Kings, it was 270. So, yeah. I will say I do kind of like the Kings -4 here, even on the road. That's a big spread especially
to be
on
if
the road.
Doesn't play tonight, I think.
Oh yeah, then the line. As soon as he gets ruled out, if he gets ruled out, that line is going to move very rapidly. So, I wouldn't mind getting in at -4 there. I love the Kings. I really do. Like if I had to pick a second team, I don't know why. I like
small market teams is why I like them.
Yeah, but I also like small market teams, but I also just like big like centers and power forwards who are playmakers as well. Domantas Sabonis is him and Şengün from the Rockets. They're like as close to Jokic as you could possibly get without actually being Jokic, I don't know. I think there's kind of like this revolution of passing big men in the NBA, and I think Jokic is at the forefront of it. But Sabonis and obviously his dad Arvydas Sabonis were kind of like revolutionary in that aspect as well. But yeah, I don't know. I like the Kings in this one. The over-under is scary. I would probably stay away from it. But you know that over is going to hit. You just know it is.
Yeah, you got a feeling about it.
Yeah.
It is high. I don't know. For me, there's better stuff, especially in college basketball tonight that I like. So
for sure.
Probably just limit myself.
It's kind of interesting for as big of a slate as this is. There aren't as many like slam dunk, like, oh yeah, I love this bet type of bets. Mm-hmm. Like all of them are kind of well made. The lines are well made.
Yeah. Yeah, you definitely see the logic behind everything that odds makers are doing and the public is doing as far as how they've moved the lines already. Like, It's just in a spot that's just hard.
Yep. So. All right. I think that's about it. That's all we got for you.